Welcome to the forest, tall trees staring at me. But I truly like the silence before the music, our music comes in. And I don't mind if you don't mind me. Sing for your life, sing for me. Let our song echo and ring in a million years for eternity. Oh, I'm home now, as home as I'll ever be. Oh, close your eyes and hold on to me. Oh, I'm home now, as home as I'll.
What's up, Savages? So we're out here in central Utah. Decided to take the family on a nice little camping trip, and while we're out here we wanted to do a bow drill fire for you guys. So we went to Home Depot before we came out because we know a lot of people want to come out to areas like this and be able to do a bow drill fire, but sometimes they don't know what to look for, or they don't have the proper technique down, so they get really frustrated. So this is going to be a two-part series. The first part is going to be stuff that you can find at your local hardware store and being able to practice the skills at home so that when you get out here and you find the proper materials, you'll be able to utilize those skills. So if you can do this at home with obviously store-bought materials, you'll be able to do it when you get out here in the woods. So the first thing we did is we bought some poplar dowel rod. This is about a 1/2 inch thick, so it's a little bit bigger, but it should be easier for you guys to get an ember started. The next thing we bought was a poplar hearthboard, and super soft wood. You can take your fingernail and press into it and still be able to see those marks. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to cheat a little bit, just because, like I said, this is a two-part series. We've got some jute twine here. So this you can actually process down and take apart. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's multiple strands in there that you can break apart. And when you're all done, you should be able to fray it out and make a decent sized little bird's nest once you get your ember. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to get this going for you, and we'll see how it goes. So we've got our dowel rod here. What we're going to do, because this is our spindle, I cut it so that it goes from my thumb to my pinky. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I'm sure you can, but that way you have the proper length spindle. I'm going to make this look like a number 2 pencil with an eraser that's slightly been used. So I'm going to cut and round off the end of this, and this is going to be the part that goes onto the hearthboard. And you just want to take off small chunks. You can always take more off, but you can't put any more back on. Round this out, and I'm going to come up halfway between where I did that first mark, and I'm going to round that out too. The knife I'm using today, believe it or not, is not a Becker BK2. This is a Pathfinder Knife School. I think this is the Black Bear. I don't even know if they make it anymore. But it's a great knife, nice Scandi grind, good 90-degree spine on it. I like this knife a lot. Taking this off, I'm making it nice and round, rounding off the end there. Because the more round it is, the more surface area you're going to be able to make contact with on your hearthboard, and the more friction that's going to cause. And being that this is a friction fire, you want to maximize the friction and minimize the effort you're putting into it. So that looks pretty good there. I don't know if you guys can see that. We're going to take this in and make it look like a sharpened pencil, because we don't want friction on this side. And the bearing block that we're going to be using today is actually one of these SE fire tools. It's got a nice little bow drill divot there. You can use the sides of it to either scrape a ferrocerium rod because it's 90-degree spines, or for a flint and steel fire. It throws amazing sparks. So let's get this other end done. We're going to chunk off larger pieces here, just because we're going to shape this down a lot more. You want to keep twisting as you're doing this and making sure that that center point stays the same. Moving around, smaller and smaller. Now, I don't like to put a super sharp point on the end of mine, just because if you slip, you don't want that point going through your hand. So you can see there, it looks like it's been used a little bit like if it was a pencil. But this way, if I do slip, that's not super sharp and it won't go through my hand, but it'll still fit inside of that notch there, that little bow drill divot, and not make any friction. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our hearthboard, and you can see we've already done a few different fires with this, but I'm going to make a brand new hole here, just like so. And I don't want it huge or super deep, I just want it large enough so that my bow, or my spindle, doesn't pop out when I start to use my bow. Take this and round it out a little bit. See that? Cut on the side. And if you start to get a little bit too deep, you can just turn your knife to the side and see how I've got a real high bite on this. And I can just use the edge of that blade to run that around here. Like that. I don't advocate putting your knife in the dirt, but for video purposes. And you can see it's a nice little divot. It shouldn't fall out. Stay tuned, we'll get set up and we'll start our bow drill. Alright guys, here's the bow we're going to use today. We found a shimmering aspen tree out here that's still green, so it's very pliable. Typically you want your bow to be from the armpit to the end of your fingers. Now this one's a little bit long, but the longer your bow, it's a little bit harder to wield, but you'll be able to get more surface area on this. This is bank line, by the way, which is charred, or it's tarred bank line. So you'll be able to get a longer draw stroke on your spindle to effectively create more friction because you're not having to stop and start as many times. I'm a little bit bigger of a guy, so I like my bows a little bit longer. It's just going to depend on you and your personal preference. So the next thing you want, you can see there's still a lot of slack here, and the reason there's a lot of slack is because once you put this in and you twist this through, that's going to take up quite a bit, and you can see that bow's bending. You want that bow to keep constant pressure on it. The reason I like the bank line is because as it starts to heat up, that tar heats up and it grips onto your spindle really well. Now if you're using 550 cord or paracord, something like that, you might want to try getting the cord a little bit wet so that it creates friction, but you don't want to get your spindle or your hearthboard wet because then you're just going to lose your ember. It won't ignite. So let's go ahead and burn in this hole. You can see we've made the divot already. I don't need to worry about catching any of the dust or anything underneath there just yet. Just because we're going to burn in the hole and then cut our notch. So let's get this set up here. Now when you're doing this, you want your foot right here next to your hole. You're going to leave your hand crooked to the side, and you're going to actually be able to push down with the front of your shin. But you want to be able to brace yourself right here on the front of your shin so that you're not wobbling around everywhere. The next thing you want to do is you want to move your back leg as far back as you can get it, so that when you're doing your draw strokes on your bow drill, keeping it straight up and down, you don't run into your own leg. So let's get this started here. We're going to go ahead and burn in this hole. I got my bow drill here. I got my spindle. We're going to set this right down into this notch that we created. I'm going to grab my bearing block, put that on top, and we're just going to do slow, steady strokes to get that burned in. And you can see, if you just adjust your angle, you can move that string up and down. So if I come up like this, see how it comes up or down. But if you keep it flat, it's not going to move at all. This isn't easy, guys. It's a lot of work to get a friction fire. And I can already start to see a little bit of smoke. I can start to see that starting to bite. I can feel it. And I just wanting to burn that notch in. You only want to do this one time. I don't want to sit here and saw back and forth on this all day long. So we'll get that nice and burned in. You guys can start to see that smoke there. You can see all that black dust. And we're going to stop. Now you guys can see that heated up quite a bit. You can see a little bit of smoke here, but we're not quite ready yet. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take our handy dandy saw. It's a Baco Laplander. This thing has seen a lot of better days, but I've been using it non-stop for the last few years. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to cut a V-notch. I don't want to go too deep into here just because if you cut too deep or too much out, you're gonna lose that top ridge and your spindle's gonna fall out. You're gonna have to start all over again. So I'm gonna get this notch cut out and we'll get right back to it, okay? Coming at a little V angle here. I go right to the edge of that. A little bit more. And I'm going to come back up to that V. Pop that out. We should be good to go there. Now we're going to get what we're going to catch our ember in. We're going to put that right underneath like so. I'm going to grab my bow again. Make sure you guys catch your breath, and then we're going to get to work. Good to go. Alright, so we're going to set that in right here. I'm going to grab my bearing block again. And we're going to get to work. Already start to see smoke. We want to fill up that notch with dust so we can get a real good ember. So I'm just going to keep on going and creating dust until that whole notch is full of it. Now just because you see smoke doesn't mean you have an ember. And I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on this just yet. I'm waiting to get that notch completely full. I got that notch full of dust. Now I'm going to bear down. Long strokes. Long strokes. Should be it. Oop. You guys can see we have a decent little ember there. A couple taps, knock that ember loose. I'm going to let that sit. I don't want to be too quick. I just want to let it sit, smolder a little bit. I can give it a little bit more air. We've got a light breeze out here. Tinder ready over here. A little baby bird's nest. What I'll do is I'll put that right on there, flip it over. I should still have an ember in there. There we go, guys. Bow drill fire. Now it might take you a couple different times to be able to get an ember. Don't get discouraged. It doesn't happen for everybody for the first time. Just keep at it, keep trying, keep making it work. In the next video that we do, we'll actually go out and we'll gather stuff from the woods and we'll get natural resources in order to do a bow drill fire and effect, obviously, an ember and a good flame. So stay tuned for more videos in this series. And as always, guys, stay savage.